B. Changes to that program. My apologies to firefighting. I had you listed as a 6th grader. I know you are an 8th grader. James Morgan is in place of Landon Morgan. Nick Storja is in place of Liam O'Brien. And Eloise County has taken the place of Aiden Peterson on the program. So if by chance those individuals have family here, I will make sure to print off a copy of a program with your child's name on it for a keepsake. Every student here today has been practicing a lot. I've seen a lot of packets out at recess, and a lot of packets out in their free time, so they work very, very hard. One thing as an audience, we want to make sure we want this B to be on the up and up, so please refrain. If there are going to be questions you hear today that you will know the answers to, please refrain from saying them out loud. We want to make sure that these 33 students here have the best chance to focus and show what they have learned over the course of studying. Please also, for time purposes, I'll say that concludes the round, and then we'll have applause for these students, but we are going to hold our applause between questions. So I will say that concludes the round, and then we will go from there. But once again, please make sure we are staying relatively silent during the B. For the winner today, the winner will receive a $50 gift card to Amazon.com. The winner will receive this great plaque, which was donated by the Bulldog backers, so a big thank you to the Bulldog backers. Second and third place will also receive gift cards. Second place will receive a $25 gift card to Subway. Third place will receive a $15 gift card to JWP. And this is brand new this year. There is a regional social studies B on, I believe, May 16th. The top 15 students today that place in this B are eligible to participate in that regional B next month. So we'll have more details on who those students are later. If by chance there's some tiebreakers I have to do afterwards, I will let those individuals know. If for some reason you have any questions during the B between rounds, please come up to the judge's table and I will try to address your questions quickly between rounds. For the competitors, I will announce what the category is before the round. It is the competitor's job to make sure he or she hears the question correctly and answers the question correctly. Each competitor will only receive one guess per question. And I have to go with the first thing said. And then lastly, if for some reason we run out of questions, because these 33 have studied so hard, there is an alternate list that they did not receive a chance to study from. We've never had to use that, but I saw a lot of students study today. If we run out of questions, we have more. So we will begin the meeting with Mr. Nathaniel Adams. Also, a big thank you to the Media Productions class for being here today. Thank you for documenting this. Okay, our first round, the category will be state capitals. I will say the city, you will say the state. Oh, I have your microphone. All right. Nathaniel, your capital is Austin.
Texas.
That is correct. Wayland, Harrisburg.
Pennsylvania.
That is correct. Cole, Springfield.
Illinois.
That is correct. Mr. Storjohn, Phoenix.
Arizona.
That is correct. Maggie, Nashville.
Tennessee.
That is correct. Liam, Des Moines.
Iowa.
That is correct. James, Denver.
Colorado.
That is correct. Gus, Salt Lake City.
Utah.
That is correct. Johnny, Santa Fe.
New Mexico.
That is correct. Logan, Trenton.
California.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. After the round, I will go over what the correct answer was. Aiden, Atlanta.
Georgia.
That is correct. Claire, Baton Rouge.
I don't know.
You are allowed to guess.
I don't know.
It is Louisiana. Ivan, Boston.
Massachusetts.
That is correct. Carter, Sacramento.
California.
That is correct. Mr. Keach, Madison. Would you like to take a guess? It is Wisconsin. Jace, your capital is Columbus.
Ohio.
That is correct. Jova, your capital is Albany.
New York.
That is correct. Damien, your capital is Juneau.
Alaska.
That is correct. Jenna, your capital is Topeka.
Kansas.
That is correct. Trade, your capital is Honolulu.
Hawaii.
That is correct. Eli, your capital is Bismarck.
North Dakota.
That is correct. Jacoby, your capital is Lansing. Would you like to take a guess? Okay. I was supposed to say the other ones after the round, so I will say that one after the round. I forgot on the last one, I apologize. Ryan, your capital is Providence.
Rhode Island.
That is correct. Jack, your capital is Lincoln.
Nebraska.
That is correct. Carson, your capital is Jackson.
Mississippi.
That is correct. is Tallahassee.
Florida.
That is correct. Isaac, your capital is Little Rock. That is correct. Eloise, your capital is Montgomery.
Alabama.
That is correct. Kyla, your capital is Boise.
Idaho.
That is correct. Garrett, your capital is Richmond.
Virginia.
That is correct. Let's hold our applause, please, till the end of the round. Thank you. Marin, your capital is Dover.
Delaware.
That is correct. Miranda, your capital is Annapolis.
Maryland.
That is correct. Holden, your capital is Raleigh.
Louisiana.
I'm sorry, that is not correct. Raleigh was North Carolina, Lansing was Michigan, Madison, Wisconsin, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Trenton was New Jersey. One moment here, let me just do this and then we'll get to the end of the round. All right, that concludes round number 1. Excellent. All right, we will begin round number 2. Our topic for this round will be American government. All right, Nathaniel, your question. How old do citizens have to be to vote for president?
18.
That is correct. Waylon, we elect a U.S. Senator for how many years per term?
6 years.
That is correct. Cole, what is freedom of religion?
Claudia.
It's where you can practice any religion or choose to not practice any religion. One moment. All right, Nick, your question. We elect a president for how many years per term?
4 years.
That is correct.
Remember, students, make sure to speak into the mic clearly, just so everyone can hear it. Me.
Maggie, in what month of the year do we vote for president?
November.
That is correct. Liam, what is the highest court States?
The Supreme Court.
That is correct. James, for this question, you must provide both of the correct answers. What are the two major political parties today in the United States?
Democratic.
That is correct. All right, Gus. What do we show loyalty to when we say the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States.
That is an acceptable answer. I would have also accepted the flag. And for this round and for the next few rounds, all of these questions come right from the U.S. government website, and they give me a list of acceptable answers. And all of these students that prepared for this event were given that exact list. So there are some answers that they have to have exact, and some where there are more than one answers for interpretation. All right, Johnny, your question. What is the supreme law of the land in the United States?
The Constitution.
That is correct. Aiden, the idea of self-government is in the first three words of the U.S. Constitution. What are the first three words?
We the people.
That is correct. All right, Ivan, who is the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military?
The president.
That is correct. Carter, we elect a U.S. representative for how many years per term?
4.
I'm sorry, that is not correct. It is 2. Jace, your question. Name one right that is only for United States citizens. Would you like to take a guess? The possible answers were to vote in a federal election or to run for federal office. Jova, how many amendments does the U.S. Constitution currently have?
27.
That is correct. Damien, for this next question, you must provide one correct answer. Name one branch or part of government.
Legislative.
That is an acceptable answer. I also would have accepted Congress, President, Executive, the courts, or judicial. All right, Jenny, your question. How many U.S. senators does the United States have?
100.
That is correct. Trayton, if the president can no longer serve, who becomes president?
The Vice President.
That is correct. Eli, why do some states in the United States have more representatives than other states?
Can I guess?
Of course.
President Bigger.
In what way?
The size of the state.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. It has to do with the state's population, not the physical size of the state. Ryan, your question. If both the president and vice president can no longer serve, who becomes president?
The Speaker of the House.
That is correct. Jack? The United States House of Representatives has how many voting members?
Can I guess?
Of course. I'm sorry, that is not correct. The answer is 435. Carson, your question. Who is in charge of the executive branch of government?
The president?
That is correct. Ava, much like with Damien's question, this same question has multiple correct answers. You must provide one. What is one right or freedom that is guaranteed in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution?
Speech.
That is an acceptable answer. Religion, assembly, press, and petition were the others. Isaac, your question. What is the rule of law?
Constitution.
I'm sorry, that is not correct. The rule of law is everyone must obey or follow the law. No one is above the law, including government officials. Eloise, your question. What did the Declaration of Independence do? Would you like to take a guess? The Declaration of Independence declared our independence from Great Britain. Kyla, your question. What is an amendment?
Is it something you have to follow?
That is not correct. An amendment is a change to the Constitution or an addition to the Constitution. All right, Garrett, your question. At what age must all men register for selective service?
18.
That is an acceptable answer. Any age between 18 and 26 would have been acceptable. Marin, your question. How many justices are on the U.S. Supreme Court?
5.
Could you please repeat that one more time?
5.
I'm sorry, the answer is 9. Miranda, your question. What is the political party of our current U.S. president?
Democratic.
That is correct. That concludes round number 2. At this time, we please have special recognition for Carter Freitag, who competed in every year he was eligible to compete in the social studies group. round number 3. The category of this round, American History. All right, we will begin the round with Nathaniel. Nathaniel, your question. Who is considered the father of the United States of America?
George Washington.
That is correct. Waylon, what did the Emancipation Proclamation do?
Freed slaves.
Yes, that is an acceptable answer. Freed the slaves. I would have also accepted freed the slaves in the Confederacy or freed the slaves in the southern states. All right, Nick, your question. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence?
Thomas Jefferson.
That is correct. Maybe your question. What major event happened in the United States of America on September 11, 2001?
Terrorist attack.
That is correct. Liam, your question. What movement attempted to end racial discrimination in the United States?
Civil rights movement.
That is correct. All right, James, for this question, I must have all 3 correct answers. During World War II, who did the United States fight in the war?
Italy, Japan, and Germany.
That is correct. Italy, Japan, and Germany. Gus, your question. What did Susan B. Anthony do?
So the flag.
Can you say that one more time?
So the flag.
That is not correct. Susan B. Anthony fought for women's rights and fought for civil rights. Johnny, your question. Name one problem that led to the Civil War.
Slavery.
That is an acceptable answer. I also would have accepted economic reasons or states' rights. Aiden, for this next question, I must have 3 correct responses. There were 13 original states. Name 3 of them.
Connecticut. North Carolina. South Carolina.
All 3 of those were acceptable responses. New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and Georgia were the other 10. All right. Ivan, your question. What was the name of the U.S. war fought between the North and the South?
The Civil War.
That is correct. I would have also accepted the war between the states. Jova, your question. Who was president during World War I?
Woodrow Wilson.
That is correct. Damien, there were many, but name one war fought by the United States in the 1900s. Speaking of
World War II.
that is correct. Jenna, your question. Before he was President of the United States, Eisenhower was a general. What war was he a general in?
World War II.
That is correct. For this next answer, there are many acceptable answers, but you must stick to the ones that were given in the packet. What did Martin Luther King Jr. do?
Advocated for African American rights.
That is an acceptable answer. Fought for civil rights or advocated for civil rights, worked equality of all Americans. Ryan, your question. What territory did the United States buy from France in 1803?
Louisiana.
That is correct. Carson, this question has multiple acceptable answers. You must give me one of them. Name one war fought by the United States in the 1800s.
War of 1812.
That is an acceptable answer. I also would have accepted Mexican-American War, Civil War, or Spanish-American War. All right, Ava, your question once again has multiple acceptable answers, but you must stick to the ones that were given on the study guide from the U.S. government. What was one important thing Abraham Lincoln did?
Free the slaves.
That is an acceptable answer. Preserved the Union and led the United States during the Civil War were the other acceptable answers. All right, Garrett, your question. Who was President of the United States during the Great Depression and World War II?
Franklin D. Roosevelt.
That is correct. Miranda, your question. During the Cold War, what was the main concern of the United States?
Communism?
Yes, communism, I will accept that. Communism. That concludes round number 3. You are eliminated in round number 3 between your family or your class. All right, we will begin round number 4. And once again, a reminder to all in the audience, please refrain from whispering or potentially saying an answer, especially during this next round. Some of you did live through this decade, so please make sure you're refraining from answering. Round number 4 is pop culture and history of the 1980s. Nathaniel, your question. I am going to say an event. This is for everybody. I'm going to say an event. You must tell me in what year of the 1980s did it occur. I am not going to say if you get it wrong, I'm not going to say the correct response afterwards. We will wait for the end of the round for that. I don't want to tilt the scales and make it in anybody's favor for guessing. All right, Nathaniel, are you ready? Here we are. 1980s. The Minnesota Twins defeat the St. Louis Cardinals in 7 games to win their first World Series.
1981.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Waylon, your question. After months of speculation, Mount St. Helens erupts. 57 are killed, and the blast deposited 540 million tons of ash across 11 U.S. states. In what year did this event occur?
1983.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Nick, your question. President Ronald Reagan defeats Minnesota's native son, Walter Mondale, by an astounding 525 to 13 landslide in the Electoral College to win a second term as president. In what year did this occur?
1988.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Maybe your question. The Berlin Wall, which separated East and West Berlin, is torn down. In what year did this occur?
1986.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Liam, your question. The royal wedding between Prince Charles and Princess Diana drew nearly 720 million television viewers worldwide. In what year did this event occur?
1986.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. All right, James, your question. The Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart only 73 seconds into its flight, resulting in the deaths of all 7 crew members, including the teacher in space, Krista McCullough. In what year did this event occur?
1987.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Jonathan, your question. Michael Jackson's album Thriller is released. The album went on to become the greatest selling album of all time, with nearly 65 million albums sold. In what year did this event occur?
1985.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Aiden, your question. 15 years after Martin Luther King's assassination, President Reagan signed Martin Luther King Jr. Day into law, making it a federal holiday. In what year did this event occur?
1986.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Ivan, after decades of mystery and speculation, the wreckage of the Titanic is found in the Atlantic Ocean. In what year did this event occur?
1985.
That is correct. All right, Joey, your question. The famed Jamaican bobsled team debuted at the Winter Olympics held in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Although the team finished in last place, their participation inspired the movie Cool Runnings to be released 5 years later. In what year did this Jamaican bobsled team make their debut?
1982.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Damien, your question. President Carter announces that the United States will boycott the Summer Olympics held in Moscow, Soviet Union. In what event did this occur?
1988.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. John, your question. The first full episode of The Simpsons, the longest-running animated television show of all time, was broadcast. In what year did this occur?
1989.
That is correct. Trayton, your question. Steven Spielberg's E.T., the Extraterrestrial, which features an alien creature, befriended and aided by children, is released in movie theaters. In what year did this occur?
1983.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Ryan, your question. Explosions at the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl, Ukraine, bring about the worst nuclear reactor accident in history. In what year did this occur?
1986.
That is correct. Carson, George Bush becomes the first vice president since Martin Van Buren to be elected president, while currently serving as the Vice President of the United States. In what year did this occur?
1982.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Ava, your question. A madman attempted to assassinate President Reagan only 2 months into his first term following a speech in Washington, D.C. In what year did this occur?
1981.
That is correct. Garrett, your question. Michael Jordan was selected by the Chicago Bulls with the 3rd overall pick in the NBA draft. In what year did this occur?
1983.
Can you say that again, please?
1983.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Miranda, your question. Michael Jackson, Bruce Springsteen, and dozens of other musicians sing the song "We Are the World," which raised awareness to the humanitarian crisis in Africa. In what year did this occur? I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Now, all right, so here's the scoop. So every student who is eliminated in that round, what I'm going to have you do is, because we still have to place you for regionals, and so everyone who is eliminated in that round is still eligible to be in regionals. So what I'm going to have you all do is, would you please fill in the back rows if you were eliminated in that round. If you actively got your question correct, you will now fill in your spots in the front row. Timeline is always a tough category. It was last year as well. That concludes the round. Let's hear it for these students. One thing, as we get a little close to the end here, for these four in particular, these four, with their standing right now, have now qualified for the regional meet. 11 more individuals will join them momentarily. Well, maybe not momentarily, we'll see. But here's how this works. Let's just say Jenna, she gets her question right, and the other three get their questions wrong. That does not mean Jenna is our champion. What that does mean is that Jenna will have to come back up and answer an additional question, which I will deem the championship question. If she gets that question right, she would be our champion, and then the other three would compete for 2nd and 3rd place. As we get closer, I'll try to explain that a little bit more as we go. Potentially, if 2 students stay on and 2 students are eliminated around, those 2 students will have to do a little bit of a be-off later to determine who will be in 3rd place. So there's a lot of scenarios up in the air right now. We thank you for bearing with us right now, and let's cheer these four on as we head into round number 5. All right, for this next round, we will go back to American history. question. There are many acceptable answers. I need one. Name one federally recognized American Indian tribe in the United States.
The Crow.
That is an acceptable answer. Jenna, your question. What is one reason colonists came to America?
For voting rights or something like that?
That is not one of the acceptable answers. The acceptable answers are, what is one of the reasons the colonists came to America? Freedom, political liberty, religious freedom, economic opportunity, to practice their religion, and to escape persecution. Jenna has not necessarily been eliminated from this competition. Ryan, your question. What group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves?
African people.
That is an acceptable answer. Ava, your question. Who lived in America before the Europeans arrived?
Native Americans.
That is correct. That concludes round number 5. Let's hear it for Jenna, who will be representing JWP at the regional meeting next month. All right. All right, we are going to begin the next round. Is this round number 6? I think so. Thank you. Round number 6. The category Integrated Civics. All right. Ivan, your question. Name one state that borders Mexico.
Mexico.
That is an acceptable answer. California, Arizona, and Texas are the others. Excuse me, sorry about that. Ryan, your question. Name one U.S. territory.
Puerto Rico.
That is an acceptable answer. Ava, why does the United States flag have 13 stripes?
For the 13 original colonies.
That is correct.
So, Ivan, we'll just do a back-to-back round here. We're going into round number 7. We're going to do that a few times when I have enough questions for the category. So, same category, integrated civics. Ivan, your question. What ocean is on the west coast of the United States?
Pacific Ocean.
That is correct. Ryan, what is the name of the national anthem?
The Stars and Band.
That is correct. Ava, for your question, you must name 2. Name 2 national U.S. holidays.
Labor Day and Independence Day.
Both of those are acceptable responses. And then, yes, let's keep going with Ivan. Round number 8. For this, I mean the month and the day. Month and the day. What day of the year do we celebrate Independence Day?
July 4th.
That is correct. Ryan, your question. Name one of the two longest rivers in the United States.
Missouri.
That is an acceptable answer. Mississippi was the other. Ava, your question. Name one state that borders Canada.
North Dakota.
That is an acceptable response. This will be the last group of questions for this category. Integrated civics, round number 9. Ivan, your question. Why does the flag have 50 stars?
To represent the 50 states.
That is correct. Ryan, your question. Where is the Statue of Liberty located?
New York Harbor.
That is an acceptable answer. We also would accept New York, Liberty Island, New Jersey, near New York City, or Hudson River. Ava, your question. What is the capital of the United States of America?
Washington, D.C.
That is correct. That concludes round number 9. All right. Ivan, the category. The category will be famous Minnesotans. The students were given a group of famous Minnesotans to research, and they had to mentally come up with a short one-paragraph biography on each. I am going to read off a biography of a famous Minnesotan. The competitors will have to name which famous Minnesotan I am referring to. Are you ready? Please wait until I am finished, and I will say who am I, and then you tell me who I am, okay? I was born in Graceville, Minnesota on August 15, 1950. I briefly played for the Minnesota Twins in 1975. However, my career as a manager would last much longer. I was the manager of the Minnesota Twins from 1986 to 2001. I am the only manager in team history to win a World Series, which I did twice, in 1987 and in 1991. Who am I? Would you like to take a guess? The answer is Tom Kelly. Ivan has not necessarily been eliminated from this competition. I was born on June 10th, 1922, somewhere over the rainbow in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. From a young age, I was a stage performer. The highlight of my career was at the young age of 16 when I was cast as Dorothy in the classic The Wizard of Oz. I had steady work for the next 30 years, but was often exploited by the pitfalls of Hollywood. I passed away at the age of 47 in 1969. Who am I?
Judy Garland.
That is an acceptable answer. I also would have accepted Frances Gum, her birth name. I was born in South St. Paul, Minnesota in March of 2003. After watching the 2008 Summer Olympics on television, I was inspired and soon was performing gymnastics maneuvers in my backyard. Through countless hours of training and hard work, I earned a spot on the 2020 USA Olympics team, gymnastics team, the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. I earned 3 medals, a gold, a silver, and a bronze. Who am I?
Suki Lee.
That is correct. So with that, let's hear it for Ivan Shamrock, our third place champion. So once again, one of these two will be our champion. If one gets it right and the other gets it wrong, the one who got it right is not necessarily the champion. We will have to go to a championship question. All right, and we will go to Ryan starting the round now. This is round 11. And we are going to stay in the famous Minnesotan category. All right. Excuse me, sorry. I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota on October 3rd, 1951. I am often considered Minnesota's greatest athlete. Following my time at the University of Minnesota, I was drafted into 4 professional leagues in 3 sports. I was drafted in both the NBA and ABA for basketball. I was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings of the NFL and the San Diego Padres in Major League Baseball. I ultimately decided to pursue baseball as my sport. It was a great decision that led me to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 2001. Who am I? I'm sorry, that is not correct. The correct answer was Dave Wingfield. Once again, Ryan has not been eliminated from this competition, even if Ava gets this question right. Ava, your question. I was born on April 10th, 1936 in Austin, Minnesota. My love of football stayed true throughout my lifetime, as a player, coach, broadcaster, and even for video games. As a coach, I led the Oakland Raiders to a victory over the Minnesota Vikings at Super Bowl 11. After retirement, I was the highest paid NFL broadcaster. I passed away in 2021 at the age of 85. Who am I?
Sean Madden.
That is correct. Now, we will now proceed to the championship question. If Ava gets this correct, she is our 2024 champion. If she gets it wrong, Ryan is back in the game. And we're going to go to the dreaded 1980s for our championship question. Sally Ride becomes the first American woman in space. In what year did this occur?
1983.
Our champion. So what we are going to do, I believe we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we have 14 competitors and we have 11 spots. Let's have these competitors resume your spots that you had with places 1, 2, 3. If Jenna's still in the crowd, you can maybe sit by her. We'll do a photo op here in a little bit. But we're going to go back to these individuals. So you can really just find stop and cover up for now. We'll do the plaque and all the photo ops in just a bit. If you'd like to join the festival, thank you. All right, so we have 14 competitors left. to determine 11 spots. So the top 11 of you will continue. So theoretically, if more than if more than 3 are eliminated, we might have to do an additional beat off here. But we'll see how this goes. We are ready to go with Nathaniel leading off the first beat off round. Oh, of course. Let me find the subject. One moment here. Let's start you off with state capitals. But this time I'm going to say the state, and you will say the city. So do you understand, everyone? I'm going to say the state, you will say the city. Are you ready? Nathaniel, the state, South Dakota.
Pierre.
That is correct. Waylon, your state, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma City.
That is correct. Nicholas, your state, Indiana.
Canadian capital, right?
Yes, sir.
Indianapolis.
That is correct. Maggie, your state, Connecticut.
Hartford.
That is correct. Liam, your state, Kentucky.
Frankfurt.
That is correct. James, your state, Missouri.
Jefferson City.
That is correct. Jonathan, your state is Maine.
Augusta.
That is correct. Aiden, your state is Vermont.
Montpelier.
Correct. Jova, your state is Montana.
Illinois.
Correct. Damien, your state is New Hampshire. New Hampshire. Would you like to take a guess? New Hampshire. Would you like to take a guess?
No.
Concord. Drayton, your state is Washington. I can understand. Would you like to take a guess? The state is Washington. Okay, Olympia. Garrett, your state is West Virginia. Would you like to take a guess? It was Charleston. Carson, your state is South Carolina. you like to take a guess? Okay. South Carolina was Columbia. All right. Miranda, your state is Nevada.
Carson City.
That is correct. That concludes the round. All right, so the following students have now qualified for the regional meeting next month: Nathaniel, Waylon, Nick, Maggie, Liam, James, Johnny, Aiden, Joa, and Miranda. So let's hear it for those individuals. All right, and with the element of the regional meter, it does add a little bit of kind of a, you have to sometimes break down the numbers. JWP, we've been given 15 spots, and the way we're going to do it is the top 15 finishers will earn the right to compete at the regional meeting. As of right now, I believe there are 14 schools going to be from South Central Minnesota going to be competing in this. We're kind of, JWP was actually the pilot school the last 5 years for a social studies meet. It's kind of caught on a little bit regionally, and now we have a regional meet. The hope is next year, not this year, but next year, that the other talented and gifted programs across the state will catch on with this, and there'll be a school one, a regional one, and then potentially a state one at the state capitol next year. But that's down the road a little bit. One of these 4 individuals will be our final entrant for that regional meet. And potentially somebody who didn't win today's beat could win the regional meet. So there's a lot still riding on the line. Let's make sure we're giving these 4 gentlemen the respect they deserve. It takes a lot of courage to be up here, and I'm proud of every one of them. So let's begin a round with Damien.
Yep, one moment. I got to figure that out first.
Let's go American government. American government. All right, Damien, your question. For this question, you must name both. What are the 2 parts of U.S. Congress? The Senate and the House. Trey, your question. What is the economic system in the United States today?
The economic system.
Yes, sir. What is the economic system of the United States today? Can we please stop the giggling and the whispering up there, please? Thank you.
This is probably wrong, but we need it.
It is capitalism. Carson, what does the president's cabinet do? Of course. They advise the president. That is correct. Garrett, your question. What stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? Checks and balances. So Carson Middlestead will be our final.